It's the middle of April. Let's do the top shelf challenge. In January, I set a goal for myself to read every one of the books on this shelf, which is the top shelf of one of the shelves in my bedroom. Now there are 52 books on this shelf, which on one hand does make it appropriate for a 2025 year-long challenge. However, knowing how much I read last year, knowing that these will not be the only books that I want to pick up this year, makes it almost unattainable from the start. So don't ask me why I'm doing this, but this is my 2025 Top Shelf Challenge. With 52 books to read, I am only on book 4 from the Top Shelf Challenge. But that's okay because I think this one is my favorite so far. This is The Missing Years by Lexi Elliott. I started reading this, I think, at the end of the last Top Shelf Challenge when I did the March update at the end of March. It is now the middle of April, and I'm just picking up The Missing Years yet again. But I do have to say, everything that I had expected for this book is there. That is a unique situation this year. The gardeners are here, so you may hear the dogs mumbling in the background. So in The Missing Years, our protagonist, Elsa, has had to return to Scotland. And by return to Scotland, I mean she hasn't been there since she was a young child. And she actually does not really remember living in Scotland at all in her life, even though she was born there. So when Elsa was very young, her father disappeared. And her mother, who is an artist, took Elsa and fled to England. And they've never been back. And Elsa's mom has just passed away, and lo and behold, Elsa has been advised by her mom's attorney that she still owns this house called the Manse in Scotland, and so now Elsa has inherited it. Now the only problem with that is, by Scottish law, Elsa can't do anything with the house, like literally can't do anything with the house except for live in it, because her father, who has never been declared dead, still technically owns 50% of the home. Therefore, Elsa can't sell it. She, by Scottish law, can't even rent it out because her father can't agree that that's what should be done. So her only option, as she's starting to go through the process that her mother should have gone through years ago of declaring him dead, she will have to declare him dead, and then she can do whatever she needs to do with the house. She and her half-sister, because her mother then went on to have a child with another man, so her half-sister Carrie, who is an actress, has come to live in the house with Elsa during this whole period. And Carrie is performing in a play in Edinburgh, and so it's convenient for her. She doesn't have to find a room in Edinburgh. She can just take the train into the city. This was news to me. I always thought manse stood for manor or mansion and was just a familial reference to it. Manse actually refers to the house associated to a church where the clergyman or vicar would live. Elsa never knew this. She's informed by one of the locals, though, that this is the meaning of it. Now, Elsa has some guilt. She didn't have a great relationship with her mom because her mom was this artist. She was very involved in making her career when Elsa was young. She moved them around a lot, living with different people, and Elsa has some resentments there. When she became partners with this man who's Carrie's father, she seemed to settle down and she became a very different person. And so Ilsa realizes that she and Carrie had very different upbringings because she lived through raising when her mom was going through her artistic stage. And Carrie had a mom who stayed at home and was a successful artist. And she also had this strong influence of a very, was a good father figure as well. And Ilsa did live with them until her teenage years, but when she got into university, she left and she never went back. So she also has guilt because she feels like she abandoned Carrie. But although Carrie may feel resentment that they didn't have a stronger relationship, it wasn't as though Ilsa owed her anything, like Ilsa needed to raise her, so anything like that, because Carrie had good parents. And this is something that Ilsa is also struggling with, the fact that her mom was a good mom to Carrie, but she was so different to Ilsa. So as soon as they arrive at the manse, Carrie, who's kind of happy-go-lucky, is like, woo, free place to stay in a beautiful house, woo. And Ilsa is much more suspicious. She is a producer for the news, and she is living with one of the reporters who is significantly older than her. He's in his 50s, she's in her 30s, and, you know, they're the typical daddy issue jokes throughout the book. And when they arrive, is thinking about her mother having illegally rented the house out to people over the years, because technically she wasn't supposed to do this either because she couldn't get Ilsa's father's agreement, and she did it anyway. So Ilsa is thinking about all the people who may have keys to the house, and it's a big house. There's an attic, there's a third floor, there's all these places to hide. Is somebody in the house? And as she's thinking all of this, and she notices that there is an ashtray with cigarettes in the master bedroom, and she thinks it's odd because the lawyer insists that the house has been empty for some time, but these cigarettes seem kind of fresh and she can still smell the smoke. So she thinks somebody's been in here. And then, I don't think that this is a spoiler, this is as far as I'll go with the plot points though. She is surprised to find a man in the house later, although she remembers locking all the doors and going upstairs. She finds a man in the house, and he basically, you would think he would be a little bit more like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you, I didn't know you moved in, but I'm here because of XYZ. He really doesn't do that. This is Jamie, he's one of the neighbors. He tells her that he's looking for his sister Fiona, that Fiona is obsessed with the manse, and she comes there quite frequently to sort of be away with the fairies. And Elsa's like, well, she can't come here anymore, we're living here, so keep her away. And he's like, I can't, I need to find her first. And so there's a little bit of contention, so I'm wondering if that's going to turn into something with them. She had her initial suspicions about the house, and now that he's been there, she has more, so she gets the locks changed. And then she sort of starts to settle in quickly to this, oh, things are going to be fine. I've changed the locks, and I've told him and his sister to stay away. So this is my territory now. Everything's going to be fine. Not everybody in this town is happy that she is there. There seems to be quite a bit of resentment towards her, towards her mom, and towards her dad. And the one thing that I am struggling with, I love the atmosphere. It's very gothic. What's going on in the house, very creepy. I will say that more stuff continues to go on with the house, even though she's settled into this. This is my territory and I'm safe. More stuff keeps happening, and it's very creepy and gross, and not like body horror gross, but it's like, ugh. And I'm here for that. That's exactly what I would want in a book that's described the way that this one is described. However, she's she uses this mechanism, and this is between every chapter. There's an imagined scenario in her head of where her dad is and what kind of life he's living, or is he alive? And so she puts him in all of these different countries, and he's living this kind of life, and he has a girlfriend, or he has a wife, and he has a family, or he's never gotten remarried. And I guess that's her coping mechanisms, because by creating all of these different scenarios for him, she never wonders why did he leave? Because he was unhappy with his life with us. And that seems to be where she's resigned and where she's living. But these people who have all this resentment towards him and her mom, I think, especially with a background as a news producer, you would be like, wait a minute. Why are you so resentful about my parents? What's going on? What do I not know? Let me start digging. And I don't see her immediately start doing that, or even gradually start doing that. I am 100 pages in now, so a little less than a third of the way through the book, and there has been none of that yet. And I think, for me personally, I would be like, what's going on? She seems very, very hesitant to ask the people who she's getting this resentment from, like, why? Why are you resentful towards them? What did I do to you? Because there are a group of people that she actually is brought to realize that she attended school with them, and they keep asking her, do you remember us? And one of those people is super, super resentful. And then the other one is Jamie, who she actually went to school with, but they never got their first conversation when he was in her house. And so she's meeting other people and drawing these conclusions like, oh, I knew these people. I was growing up with them, and then I was pulled away from this situation. But there's no, hey, like, what do you know? I left. My mom never talked about it. What do you guys know? I'm hoping we're going to get to that. That's the one thing that at 100 pages in, I want to see. And so I'm hoping that as I read today, we'll get there. I hope I get there, because I'm really liking it so far. So I don't want there to be anything else that knocks this book down any further in my ratings. All right, I think the gardeners are gone. I need to put the dogs out and get to work. So I will update you later. And hopefully I will be closer to finishing or finished with The Missing Years. All right, I finished The Missing Years by Lexi Elliott, and I really liked it. I do have some sense of not really feeling satisfied with the ending, but I think overall I liked the writing and I liked the story that was told. I do think the wrap-up of the storyline with the father who disappeared was a little anticlimactic, but I think it was for a reason, and this hair is just absolutely crazy. But I really like the characters, and I wish there were more, because I hate when you read a book and you love the characters and then that's just it. And that is where I'm at with this. So I don't know what story would be told, but definitely liked the characters and would have enjoyed reading more about them. And Lexi Elliott will definitely be on my list of authors to read. I ended up giving it 4.6 out of 5, and I feel good about that. I think that taking off the fractional points takes into consideration where I have my issues with the book. But overall, for a thriller, again, I felt that it was well plotted. I thought that it had great character development, and the aspects of the main events of the book, other than the father's disappearance, were nothing earth-shattering or groundbreaking or anything that hasn't been done before, but it was done well. So it kept me entertained. It was a quick read and I enjoyed it. So that is it for April for the top shelf. Now, May, we have another one of those situations. So the next book off of the shelf is Kara Hunter's In the Dark. And this is not the first in the series. And this time I do not own the first in the series. The library has it, so I don't have to buy it at least. But I still haven't figured out how am I going to count that, because to read that book, I need to read that book because I'm a diehard serial reader. I can't go out of order. And so I have to read that book. But I can't count it as one read off of the shelf because I don't own the book, so I'm not changing places. I'm not taking this book and I'm reshelving it where the other one currently is on my shelves. That was the rule. So this is the first time that something has happened where I think I actually have to make the number for the top shelf challenge go up. And I'm just not happy about it. But it is what it is. So the first in the series is Close to Home. So that will be the next book that I will read for the top shelf challenge, and that will be in the May video. So that is it for April. Hi, this is Gina from the future. It is now January of 2026, and you're going to be seeing more of me in the rest of this video as I catch up what happened throughout 2025 for the top shelf challenge, because come May of 2025, things just fell apart, and there are things I didn't record, there are things that I recorded but I can't find, and I'm trying to piece it together as I am going through and editing, but there's going to have to be some insertion done here. So this is the first spot where that's happening, and it is happening with Close to Home. I really liked this book. I gave it a 4.7. We'll just start there. And I had some B-roll of me reading it, but this was also happening around the same time that Ariana and I started filming our 24-hour reading. And I was so focused on doing updates for that. Didn't think about doing updates for the book I was reading during that period for the Top Shelf Challenge. So Close to Home, 4.7. It is the first in a series featuring a group of detectives whose DCI leader has gone through something traumatic with his son. It is a case that they're placed on of a missing girl. We eventually find out what happened to his son and why people are asking him if he's okay working on this case. This is the type of book that I like, and this is why I like police procedurals, because we saw all of the different red herrings and all of the different places that the investigation has to go that may be something, but then are not something. It also opens up, and I think we see this a lot in TV cop dramas, about once you start digging into anybody's life, you uncover all of their nitty-gritty little secrets, and some of them are far worse than others, and some can be ambiguous and misconstrued and shifted and turned, and it just became a case of really what is going on here. This book did have a twist at the end. I liked that it had the twist at the end, did not see it coming, which is why one of the reasons why I ranked it so high. And this book does not have a happy ending for anybody involved in the crime. And the resolution is a resolution. Is it the resolution that can undo what's been done? No. I also really liked that one of the reasons I think I like mysteries versus thrillers, and especially mystery series, is that we do get character development. We do have the character We do have the character development of the team that keeps coming back, and we know about them, and we know about their lives, and we know the good about them, and we know the bad about them. And this is definitely has a main character in the DCI, but we also have secondary characters. Some of them we learn more about in this story, in this first novel in the series, and others I'm hoping we will learn more about as we continue on with the series. So that was close to home. Again, this is the first book that I had to add a book to the top shelf. So we started with 52 and we had to go up one. So the base number for the top shelf is now at 53. That took us into June, and I had my first pull off the shelf in June of Death by Dragonfly. And of course, this was not the first in a series. So the first in the series is Stolen Hearts. And I don't think I filmed anything for this book, so I don't know what I was thinking, but I gave it a 3.1. I ended up getting it out on Kindle Unlimited, so I've returned it. And this was kind of a cozy, but it's really a PI book. So our main character, David Randall, is a PI. He's kind of down on his luck, and like our main character in Close to Home, he has an issue from his past with his daughter that we learn about in Stolen Hearts. And he's gone through a divorce. He's heartbroken over what happened with his daughter. And he's basically just scraping by. He remarried, I think, after the first wife where he had the issue with the daughter. I think he remarried after that, and then they're separated. So he's homeless. He's basically has nowhere to go. And he is taken in by a friend who is a psychic. So you do have to suspend some disbelief. There is some woo-woo involved in this one. And I would say that when I consider a paranormal mystery, I usually think of the main character being the person who has some type of ability, or there are some type of magical creatures involved in the story. And it's more this side character who is a psychic, and he does help the main character, however. So kind of paranormal-ish elements, but I wouldn't shelve it on a paranormal shelf. Again, I gave it a 3.1. Basically, Randall is hired to help a woman who is claiming that her relative is responsible for writing some very famous folk music, and she wants to get her the credit that she feels that she is due. Her lover had taken credit for writing the work, and she thinks it's unfair. There is also an aspect of a murder that occurs at the very beginning of the book and is also music related. There's some sheet music that is found at the scene of the crime and how it all ties together. I know that Jane Tesh, the author, is attempting to really write about found family, because Randall and his friend, who is a psychic, that gentleman owns a house that Randall moves into, and there are other tenants in this house as well. And so it's sort of this rooming house, boarding house, and found family, and how everybody interacts with each other. And again, I do appreciate the character development, and this is going to be a continuing series. So Death by Dragonfly is going back on the shelf. This again added +1, so now we're up to 54 books on the top shelf as our base, and this will get reshelved to circle back around and to be completed at the end of the top shelf challenge. I'm not in a rush to get to it. The next book I pulled off the shelf was Murder in an Irish Cottage by Carleen O'Connor, and I'm going to jump into a little bit of footage that I did record about this. However, I can't find the footage where I explained that Murder in an Irish Cottage is 5th in Carleen O'Connor's series. So I pick up some other books first because I did place a hold on the first in the series, which is Murder in an Irish Village, but I didn't have it and I wanted to keep going. So we will come back to Carleen O'Connor and her series, and now we are going to jump into Murder at the Mill, and I'll let Gina from the past take over from here. Welcome back to the Top Shelf Challenge. It is the last day of July, and so this is a July and maybe a June wrap up, and now we're falling into August, and long story short, I've only read 6 books of 52 as we are about to enter August. So we've got some work to do to try to even get halfway through this challenge. I'm about to pick up Murder at the Mill by M.B. Shaw, which I just found out is a pseudonym for Tilly Bagshaw. Didn't realize that. And this sounds very much what I am in the mood for right now, which is a cozy mystery, and this is one. So I'm really looking forward to this, and so I will keep you updated along the way as I get through it. I'm planning on getting some reading done during the day on my lunch break, and then hopefully this evening Daisy has a vet appointment, and so definitely can't read while I'm there, but hopefully when I get back. Hi, it's me again, future me. And good news is this will probably be the last time that you see me, because I think I have all the footage after this. I think. We'll see. However, I did not seem to record any kind of impressions about Murder at the Mill. So we're going to do that right now. This takes place in a small, quaint little English village. There's a manor house and all the good things that you find in a British mystery set in a village. And I really enjoyed it. I liked it. It is definitely a cozy. I gave it a 4.4, and I will definitely be continuing on, although I did go to get the second book in the series after finishing this one because I liked it, and I really had problems finding it. Could not find it anywhere, so I had to order from Amazon. Anyway, our main character is Iris. Iris is an artist. She is married to Ian, who is a writer, and there's a little bit of contention in their marriage because Ian was once a very successful writer. He's a playwright, I believe, and he is quite a bit older than Iris. I believe that they met because he was one of her professors, and so there's a little bit of an ick factor there. But she is an artist who has gained success. She's gained some notoriety, so her career has been on the ascent while his has been in the descent, and he does not seem to be handling that very well. And so basically she's driving along from one place to another, and she's driving through this little village, and she sees this little mill house, and she thinks that it would be amazing to gain inspiration by staying in this house for a while and painting there. And because things aren't going well between the two of them, she takes that as a sign that she should do this, and she rents the house. And the manor house, for which the mill house is on the property, is owned by a very successful mystery author named Dom and his wife Aradine. And Dom is a little full of himself. They know who Iris is and think it would be very, very flattering if Iris were to paint Dom's portrait. And because she is living there, she's their tenant, she agrees, she takes on the commission, and she begins painting Dom. Now, as she is painting Dom, she's seeing his character. So they give the impression of having the perfect marriage. They have 3 adult sons, and one of them is, I believe, has Down syndrome. One is married with children of his own, and then there's the 3rd son who's just returned home. He's like the black sheep. But for all intents and purposes, they have given off this facade of being this perfect nuclear family. And when Iris begins painting Dom, she can see the cracks in the facade. Dom is very much a domineering, kind of a womanizer, and Aradine seems a little bit of an enabler to Dom. She's got a very nice life, very nice lifestyle, and she appears to turn a blind eye to what he's doing. And then there is the son who is the black sheep, and Iris finds out he's actually been in jail, in prison, and he's just gotten out. And then there is the other brother who's very, very successful, has a great professional career, and he is married to Jenna, and they have children, and that appears to be a very successful marriage as well. So Iris is getting to know them, and she sees the cracks in the facade. She is there over the Christmas holidays. They have this big Christmas party, and she meets the brother of Dom's best friend from his childhood, and his childhood friend has passed away. They believe he jumped out of a window many, many years ago when they were all much younger. And so it's viewed as, isn't it nice of Dom to keep up a relationship with this friend's younger brother, who he doesn't have to, but because for old time's sake, he invites him along for the holidays. Now, after the Christmas party, Dom is discovered murdered. The next day, I believe it's Christmas morning, his body is found outside by the son who has Down syndrome. And what follows is trying to figure out who done it and the potential suspects. Of course, the son who's just come home from prison is leading the list, and then we go from there. Other people we've met along the way. So it is, from that perspective, very, very standard. Have a body. She's an amateur sleuth. She's trying to figure it out just because she's in the proximity, basically. And she doesn't really have any skin in the game. It's not like she's being accused. It's not like she's trying to save somebody who's being accused. She's just very curious, and she happens to ask the right questions and be engaged and involved in it. However, Jenna, Marcus's wife, is really determined to find out who done it, and she's encouraging Iris to ask questions and investigate on her behalf. And so it's sort of being spurred on by Jenna that Iris takes it on as well. I will say, I did find it a little predictable. It was pretty easy to figure out who done it and why, but I liked the characters, I liked the setting, I liked the writing style, so I'm definitely carrying on with the series. And I'm really happy that I read it after it being on my shelf for so many years, and glad that checked that box, and now I have the next in the series. So although we got to reduce by 1, at this point. Definitely added, of course not to the top shelf, but added another book because I bought the next in the series. Okay, back to Gina of the Past, because now we can continue on with the rest of the books that I read off the top shelf for the rest of the year. Okay, I made a left-hand turn. I was able to get the first in the Irish Carleen O'Connor series from Libby. However, I'm already listening to a book, and I only like to listen to one audio at a time. And I don't want to stop the one that I'm listening to because it's got a return date, so I just want to finish that one. So I really wanted to make some forward progress on the top shelf though, so I decided to pick up the next book on the shelf, which is Suburban Dicks by Fabienne Nicieza. And it's the first, it's a first novel. So no worries, no more adding books, we're all good to go. So I am going to be picking this one up as my next read. It is now November 1st. So let's do some catch up with each other on this because many months have gone by. And while they were going by, I was still working on the Top Shelf Challenge. Poppy and Clover are over here playing, so you're going to hear periodic noises from them. But basically, here's where we're at. Since my last update, I finished 4 books from the top shelf, bringing the total read to 11 currently. However, so far I've had to add 2 books, so instead of 52 books to complete, the total went up to 54. So 11 out of 54 on November 3rd. You can see where this is going. And I will talk in a moment about what I think is going to happen with the Top Shelf Challenge. But first, let's go through what I've actually finished. I mentioned that I was starting Suburban Dicks, and this is a book about suburban New Jersey housewife. She is coming home from taking her husband to the train station one morning, and one of her kids has to go to the bathroom really, really badly. She pulls into a gas station, and it just happens to be a crime scene that she drives into because the police have not blocked it off appropriately. Little do they know that she was in training to be an FBI profiler before her life went down this path where she got pregnant, so she got married, and then she's just become this baby making machine. Oh, by the way, she's like 8 months pregnant at the beginning of this book. So as soon as she pulls into the gas station, she is, and realizes it's a crime scene, she is summarizing it. She's noting everything. She's seeing, you know, everything that she's been trained to pick up from looking at a crime scene and do analysis. And they're just trying to get rid of her. And she's like, okay, see ya. And she leaves. Now, at the same time, one of her friends from high school, whose brother she actually used to date, is a reporter, and he's had a fall from grace. And so any story that's going to raise his visibility and get him back in front of the public, he's all over. So he really wants to crack this murder investigation, but the police quickly summarize that this was either a robbery gone wrong, because it's the gas station attendant who has died, or maybe the gas station attendant was dealing in drugs on the side and this is a drug deal gone wrong. And they're just kind of writing it off. But the reporter doesn't think so, and she doesn't think so. They eventually end up together to figure all of this out. She's, of course, feels like she's missed her chance at the life that she wanted to live. In background, she solved a serial killer case when she was still in college, maybe in high school. She's just always had this gift for figuring these things out. She's normally just naturally intuitive, and they figure out why this crime occurred and who the perpetrator was. I thought this was a really great book. Fabian Nicieza, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, is one of the producers, I think, of the Deadpool movies, maybe a writer of Deadpool, not sure. And I really enjoyed how he wrote the characters. The story was very, very creative, and definitely more of a mystery than a thriller. This is, why did this crime happen and who done it? So definitely a mystery, and it was almost a 5-star read for me. So I knocked it down a few points for things that seemed a little, kind of tweaked me a little bit, but otherwise almost a 5-star read. Probably one of the best books that I read in 2025 so far. So I really liked this one. And there was a second book. I've picked it up from the library to continue on with it. I just haven't started it yet. The next book that came off the shelf was The Lost Ones by Anita Frank. And this was a big book. And that's probably my biggest complaint about this one. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Right from the start, I'll tell you that. It's a little bit different. So we have our main character, Stella, and this is historical. So we are just after the First World War. Yeah, it's 1917. And Stella had been engaged to basically her childhood sweetheart. He had gone off to fight in World War I. She had gone off to become a frontline nurse, and it does not end well. He dies in battle, and she falls into a depression, obviously to be expected. She returns home. Her family is not very sympathetic. Her parents, at least her mother, is not very sympathetic to what she's going through. Hires a doctor, basically wants to institutionalize her because she just won't snap out of it. So she's in this very unhappy place. In the meantime, her younger sister has gotten married and gone off to live in her husband's ancestral home. And she is expecting their first baby. When she reaches out to Stella, or actually the husband reaches out to Stella and asks if she will come and stay with her younger sister while he is busy doing war-related work. So of course she says yes. Number one, that gets her away from her mother and this horrible doctor who wants to institutionalize her. Number two, she gets to go be with her younger sister who she loves. So she goes to stay at this house, and from the very, very beginning, she's like, something is off here. It's a beautiful place. However, her sister's mother-in-law is not a very welcoming or very nice person. And there is this housekeeper who is straight out of Rebecca. She is that, sort of imposing black-dressed figure. And they don't seem very, very happy. And then the mother-in-law also has a companion who seems like a very nice lady, but she doesn't go against either the housekeeper or the mother-in-law. Stella is not there very long when weird things start happening, and she thinks that maybe they have a ghost situation, that this is a haunted house. And lo and behold, her sister eventually tells her, yes, that's why it was important for you to come and stay with me, because the house is definitely haunted. So these two sisters are convinced. Everybody else is basically telling them that they're crazy. Even Stella's brother-in-law is like, you guys need to knock it off. And he brings in a wounded veteran who has made it his business to do sort of paranormal investigations, who's going to prove that there is, of course, no ghost. This is all just in their heads. The vibes were definitely here for this one. It was this spooky house. Oh, and Stella brings with her a maid who can see dead people. And there's a secret in the house. Basically, Stella's brother-in-law is the younger son, but the older son died when he was still a boy. He was the half brother, and he fell down the stairs that are like basically right outside of Stella's room. And so this is all tying in together, correct? So definitely spooky. It is paranormal. And so if you do not like woo-woo in your mysteries, this one isn't for you. But again, I gave it 4 stars. Again, it's just super, super long, and it didn't need to be this long. It's like 450 pages, and it was slow moving in parts. A lot of it was setting up ambiance, but then there were also periods, I think, where I wrote that we get hints every once in a while of Stella saying things like, something happened, but I can't really talk about it. I'm not ready to talk about it. And then she tells us what happened, and it's like not a big deal. That happened a few times, so that was a little bit annoying. I did feel like there was a potential setup for there to be a second book coming, but so far I haven't seen anything about there being a next chapter, so to speak, or there being another book. So I guess it's a standalone, but I liked it. So we were doing great. Picked up 2. They were good reads. Top Shelf was working out tremendously. The next book I picked up was Hearts of the Missing by Carol Potenza. And I gave it a 3.5 stars. So not great, but not horrible. In this book, we are following our main character, who is a police officer by the name of Nikki. And Nikki has a little bit of a checkered past. We find out really early on in the book that she had been having an affair with the chief of police of the state police when she was in law school. And he's married, and she holds firm to the fact that she did not know he was married. Kind of feel like with that public of a position, kind of would have been easy to figure out if he was really married or not. Maybe she didn't want to know. Maybe she knew and she didn't care. It's just a little sus. Basically, when his wife finds out about the affair, she throws a fit and she actually tries to kill Nikki. And she is going to trial for it. And basically, Nikki is victim shamed. And she is blackballed. She leaves law school. I think she had a job lined up, and the offer is withdrawn. And a very powerful man. His wife comes from a very powerful family, or he comes from a very powerful family. So her life just kind of disintegrates over all of this. And she goes to work for the tribal police. She is not indigenous, but she goes to work for the tribal police because it's a way for her to have a career in law enforcement, which I guess is what she wants now. And she's never going to get into any other branch of law enforcement other than the tribal police. So she takes what she can get. She's been there for a while, and she likes her position. She likes working on the reservation. They've accepted her because she has taken the time to learn about the culture and their traditions, and she has integrated really, really well. One day, a grandmother and her grandson come into the police station to report that another granddaughter is missing. And although she has a history of drug use, she's been clean for quite a while. She's in college. She was about to graduate, and she was going to become a journalist. And they want to know what has happened to her. This leads to Nikki finding out that the woman has been killed, and there's some discrepancies in what actually happened to her. And Nikki makes it her mission to find out the truth, even though her boss tells her case closed, leave it alone. They write it off as a suicide. They figure that she was doing drugs again. She couldn't handle the pressure of school, and so case closed, just leave it alone. Nikki's best friend works in administration for the department, and her other best friend is an EMT, I believe, and he's in love with the best friend who works in administration. There's something going on there. And then Nikki gets a love interest when a new guy comes to town and starts working for what I would equate to like the Forest Service where I live. So it's got these side elements, these romantic elements going on. And because Nikki's boss wants her to leave the case alone, she's sharing all of the information about this case with her two friends, which seems a little like maybe she shouldn't be doing that, but she does. I figured out where we were going with this about halfway through, and when it first entered my mind, I was incredulous, like, no, really? This is what we're gonna do? Really? And we did it. So it was a bit of a disappointment at the path that the story took, but this is a debut, and sometimes I tend to, it could have been a bit harsher with my score of it, but because it was a debut, I tended to give it a little bit more grace. It wasn't horrible. I'm happy that I read it and got another book off the top shelf. Now, there are more in the series. Generally, I will continue on with the series if I give it at least 3 stars. And so this is on my list to potentially follow up on, but it would probably be a while before I read the next one in the series on this one. So still, so far so good. Nothing lower than a 3.5 stars comes of it. And then I picked up A Spell of Murder by Clea Simon. Now, Clea Simon is an author who I feel like has written for years cozy mysteries, and I don't have any of them though. I think I've even been at conventions where she's been in attendance, and maybe I've seen her on panels. So when this popped up, I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm finally reading a Clea Simon. This is the beginning of a new series. It is called A Witch Cats of Cambridge Mystery. I was reading it just around the Halloween season, perfect timing. And basically our main character is Becca. And Becca's life is kind of at a crossroads. She's unemployed. Her boyfriend has broken up with her, and she's having problems finding a job. She's got 3 cats, and they're pretty much the only thing holding her life together. In her job, she was a researcher, and she's really, really good at doing research. So to keep herself busy as she's looking for work and she needs something to occupy her mind, she decides to do a little bit of genealogy work on her family, and she digs up a record that potentially one of her ancestors was a woman who was involved in the Salem witch trials. And she wants to learn more about this woman and what happened to her. She was convicted of being a witch, and Becca takes it to an extreme. She seems to not have a grasp on the fact that her ancestor was falsely accused of being a witch, convicted, and killed, and she jumps to the conclusion that her ancestor was actually a witch, and therefore she must actually be a witch. So she joins a coven. Natural thing to do, right? No, but that's what Becca does. She joins a coven and she starts attending these weekly meetings with this group of people. And there is a very charismatic warlock character who seems to be involved romantically, making his way through the coven. For some reason, even though one of the members is a very wealthy older woman, who lives in a beautiful building. They decide to meet every week at Becca's little tiny apartment with her 3 cats. Again, total sense, right? And one night after the meeting, one of the members asks Becca to come to her apartment because she's got some information that she wants to share with Becca. She doesn't know who else to share it with. It's very interesting considering Becca's the newest member of the group, but okay. Becca goes there and finds the girl has been murdered. And as she is making this discovery, the warlock arrives on the scene, and it's all very suspicious. Of course, Becca becomes a suspect because she doesn't know why this woman wanted to talk to her, so she can't tell the police, and she was at the scene of the crime. It's just very odd behavior. So Becca feels like she has to clear her name, so she needs to investigate. Now, at the same time, if you remember that I told you that Becca has 3 cats, those 3 cats are actually witches. Because in this world, cats are witches. Not all cats, but only cats are witches. They're still cats. They're potentially very self-serving and selfish and really only just want to be fed and have a comfortable place to sleep. But one of the cats, who is especially bonded with Becca, feels like she has to go along with Becca on this investigation to keep her safe. Now, the cats have magic, but it's very limited magic, and they each have different magic, which causes more problems than it solves, I think. But we go along for the ride as the cats and Becca figure out who done it. I ended up giving this book between 2.5 stars. So I will not be continuing on with this series. And I'm glad to have gotten it off my shelf, and I will be sending it out into the universe to maybe somebody else who will enjoy it. My biggest complaints with it were that for somebody who has written so many books, the writing was really clunky. We have a situation where Becca is the human, so she's the one gathering information and talking to people and asking people questions. And because one of the cats can not really make itself invisible, but shade itself so that it's less apparent that it's there, that was another thing that was awkward. Like, just give the cat invisibility. Why is it this complicated shadow type thing that the cat can do? Hi, baby. So that was clunky. And then the other thing was when Becca was figuring things out, noodling things over, to allow the cat to have the information, Becca talks to herself constantly. And so she's walking down the street in the middle of Cambridge, talking to herself in order to provide information to the cat, so the cat has the leads, basically. And it just seemed, if you saw this person walking around the city streets, just having this conversation with themselves, you would say, Miss, are you okay? Like, do you need some help? What's going on here? And finally, in that last little run of books where I was having some success, I picked up the next one on the shelf, which was Murder in an Irish Cottage by Carleen O'Connor. The only problem was this is the 5th book in a series. So I added 4 additional books to the challenge, bringing me up to a total of 58 books currently on the challenge. 12 finished, so 12 out of 58 now. And I was able to get the first in the series, which is Murder in an Irish Village, through Libby, through the library. So I listened to that. So Murder in an Irish Village is the story of Siobhan,
who has 5 brothers and sisters, and they've recently lost their parents in a car accident. And they own the cafe in town. And Siobhan has taken it upon herself to take on the mother role of the family and keep the cafe open and keep the family together. To do that, she's had to give up her dream of going to university. And so she's just staying in town and living in this little village where she's lived her whole entire life, and her dreams of getting out of the town, out of the village, have evaporated, basically, because her younger siblings are quite a bit younger and are still in school. So she's just taking care of the family, living day to day, running this cafe, and she sees the brother of the guy who caused the car accident that killed her parents. He was drunk driving. And this brother confronts her and basically tells her, you need to give me 10,000 euros. And she's like, why? Why would I give you 10,000 euros? And he said, because I'm going to uncover the secret of the accident. My brother didn't cause it, and you need to pay me. And she was like, your brother's in jail. It's not going to bring my parents back. So no, I'm not going to give you 10,000 euro. The next morning, she wakes up, she goes downstairs, and he is dead in the cafe. He has been stabbed with a pair of scissors. The hairdresser in the town happened to be handing out these scissors to everybody as like promotion. She took a pair, and this seems to be her pair that she took is the pair that has killed him. So, of course, at first blush, she seems to be the suspect, but no, the police officer who she has this ongoing flirtation with tells her that it had to be somebody really strong, like a man, and so her older brother becomes a suspect and is actually arrested. So she has to clear his name. It was a good, cozy mystery. I listened to it, so I didn't get all the nuances of it, so I did not give it a rating, but I know that I'm happy to continue on with the series. And I liked the characters, I liked her, and liked the potential for the ongoing romance with the police officer, and really enjoy how she cares for her family, how she feels the responsibility to them, but it's not a burden to her. She can't imagine doing anything other than that. So that got us to 12. And that is now taking us to the next book on the shelf. All right, moving on. The next book on the shelf is The Man in the White Linen Suit by David Handler. And here is where we really are running into trouble. This is the 11th book in a series. 11, which means that I need to read 10 books before I can get to this one. And I don't own any other book in this series, so I can't just swap this out with something, which is devastating. The first book in the series is available on Kindle Unlimited. My library does not have the series either, so thankfully I can read the first one in the series, and I have it on my Kindle now. It's called The Man Who Died Laughing, so I'm going to pick that up and begin reading it. But I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm adding 10 books to the challenge. I have not figured this out yet. Right now I'm just focused on let's get this started and let's see if I like it, and we'll go from there, and I will figure out what I'm going to do with the challenge at some point. So let's start reading The Man Who Died Laughing.
Okay, I am 100 pages into The Man Who Died Laughing and ready to give my first thoughts on it. So there's an introduction in this Kindle Unlimited version from A.J. Finn. It's A.J. Finn, right? Who wrote The Woman in the Window? Who is a thriller writer. And not knowing anything about this series or about the author, I did read the introduction and thought, oh wow, I think I'm really going to love this book. Finn introduces this series to us almost as though it is a classic and wrote so glowingly about it and the impact it had on them that although they are a thriller writer, and this is definitely a cozy mystery series, the plotting, the elegance of the main character are things that they try to emulate in their work. And I was very excited. I love Golden Age mystery. I thought, ooh, I'm not really sure when this was written, but this elegant main character, and Finn drew a correlation to the Nick and Nora Charles series from the Golden Age, which is a series I love, and I thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. And I'm not finding it to hit any of those marks. As of right now, 100 pages in, I don't have a reason to give it less than 4 stars, but I would not give it more than 4 stars. And we're 100 pages in, we don't have a body yet, and I don't like, it's not that I don't like the main character, I just don't care for the main character. I don't find him to be an elegant, debonair character. He's this guy who's very down on himself. He feels like a loser. He's been through a divorce. His ex-wife has remarried already. He doesn't know what to do. He can't write. He's got writer's block. And he takes this job as a ghost writer, writing the biography of a comedian from the 50s to basically survive. And he's come out to California. He lives in New York. He's come out to California. He's living in the pool house of the comedian while he is working on this book. And the comedian is not a nice guy. He's got anger issues. He's not nice to people. He's got some secrets and some things he doesn't want to include in the book. He tries to shut the book down at one point where Hoagie, our main character, doesn't know what he'll do if he has to go back to New York. And everything that Finn put into the introduction, I'm not seeing in this book. So I'm trying to separate my disappointment in what I read in the introduction and what is not there for me in the book, and pretend that I didn't read the introduction at this point, which I'm finding difficult to do, but I'm doing it. I'm taking that approach with it. So we're a third of the way through the book, and I'm waiting for the murder to happen, because so far it's just these two guys talking and not really ever getting anywhere. Like, the comedian tells a little bit of information, but it's never really getting to the point where we have an aha moment. And he had a falling out with his comedic partner, and nobody has ever spoken about what happened. And he doesn't want to put that in the book, but the publisher thinks that it's going to be in the book. That's one of the reasons they made the book deal. And so Hoagie is trying to say, well, what are we going to do? Because I don't know if the publisher's going to be happy with this. And there's an attraction between Hoagie and the comedian's adult daughter who lives with him, which just is something I always think is frequently done when we have a male author writing about this sort of down on his luck, hard on himself character. There's always this attractive woman that throws herself at him, and he feels so down about himself. He can't believe she's throwing herself at him, and why would she want to be with me, kind of a thing. But at the same time, she desperately wants to be with him. And he's so, why would she want to be with me? I'm looking at it going, yeah, why would she want to be with him? What's going on here? So there are things about this that inherently bother me in writing and in cozies, and we'll see where it goes and where it ends up. Now, the unfortunate thing is again, this is the first book in the series, and I own the 10th book in the series for the Top Shelf Challenge. So we're going to get to a point where I'm going to be reading 9 more books. If I don't like it, what am I going to do? Or if it's just an okay book, I'm going to push through and read them occasionally, I guess, to get to the one that I own. But if the beginning of this is any indication, I would not buy any more in this series, which I guess is already a rating in and of itself. But that's where we're at, and I'll keep going.
I'm here with an update on The Man Who Died Laughing, and I am 63% of the way through this book, and we've just had the death. And I can't say that I'm loving this book, but I can't really explain why. I think a lot of it had to do just such a slow build up to what we knew we were going to get. Every synopsis that I've read of this book goes into detail about who is going to die, and the fact that it took 60% of the book to get there didn't really build to a lot for me. It wasn't as though the exposition was uncovering nuances or anything like that. I think all of the information that we got up until the murder occurred, we got in the first 15% of the book. So from 15% to at least 50%, it was just the same old, same old. And honestly, even being at 63% with a little less than 40% of the book to go, I feel like it's just going to be more of the same. Like, how is it going to take 40% of this book to wrap up whodunit? I don't know that I want to read that much of it. So that takes me back to the conundrum of what to do about the Top Shelf Challenge, because the book that is on the top shelf is number 10 in the series. I don't think I'm going to rate this book lower than a 3 at this point, which honestly has always been my rule. If I'm giving something a 3 or more, I will continue the series. I probably will just not go very, very quickly through it. Since I will probably be giving this at least a 3, I would continue on with the series. I will probably push the next in the series out and not read it back to back. So it just means moving on to something different in the TBR challenge. Now, it's unfortunate because I was really having a great time with this challenge and picking up the books that I was reading on it. For the most part, it's been pretty high ratings. There was only one prior to the Cleo Simon book that I did not love. And then I hit the Cleo Simon, which I did not like at all. Definitely happy that was the first in the series. Not going to continue on with that series. Now hitting this one, it's sort of lackluster, and I'm starting to get worried about the other books on the shelf. So just want to get through this one, pick up the next book on the shelf, and keep my fingers crossed that it goes back to being a book that I really, really like. So I will check in one more time when I finish reading The Man Who Died Laughing. And then at that point also let you know what the next read off the shelf is going to be.
I did finally finish The Man Who Died Laughing. And this is my first problematic read from the Top Shelf Challenge. Now, it was problematic because it was so far into the series, and I was thinking, what do I do having to read 10 books before I get to the book that I have in the series? The other problematic thing is, didn't exactly love this book. It does fall into the territory from a rating perspective of where I would continue a series. I gave it a 3.5, but I'm not excited to do it, so I don't know how long it's going to take me to pick up the next book in the series, which definitely makes the challenge more complicated. Now, not only did I not get I think what I was supposed to get from the Hoagie character, I did not appreciate the way that mental health was dealt with in this book, or was not dealt with in this book. It was a little dated from that perspective, and I found it interesting that this was lauded as almost like a classic. And reading a lot of classic mysteries, I had never heard of this before. You know, I grew up in the 80s. I thought, oh, it's the 80s. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff here to read about, to go down memory lane. It didn't strike me as a very 80s novel either. There were not a lot of references to things going on in the 80s. It was definitely a throwback to a lot of references to the 40s, 50s, 60s, the Rat Pack, things that went on in Vegas in the 50s and 60s. And this one did have quite a bit of ick factor in how it dealt with relationships with women and with mental health. Not the worst book I've read this year, definitely not the best book I've read this year. And it will be interesting to see how the series progresses, if and when the character is not in that type of a universe. The other thing that I didn't appreciate about this book was it took forever to get to the murder. I mean, it was almost an afterthought that the murder occurred. It was all set up to the murder, and it did become pretty clear who was going to be the culprit and why. And then the resolution was almost like a throw-in, like, oh yeah, that's who did it, and that's why, and it makes sense, okay, bye. It just didn't have it was not satisfying, the way that the book was structured. And again, the things that were discussed that were a little abrasive, I just didn't love it. Yeah, it's going to take me a while to get through this series. It is now the 27th of December, and I highly doubt I'm going to read any more books off of the top shelf. So let's wrap it up. How did the year go? So as a reminder, I started the year with 52 books on that shelf, and the good news first, I did read 13. So more than one a month, which I think is a positive because it cleared some books off of that shelf. Now, I do, in retrospect, thinking I was going to read 52 books and clear that shelf this year when my reading goal was 56 books was a little over optimistic. But at least I worked on it. Just like Clover is currently working on this squeaky toy. So now for some not so great news. I started with 52 books. I read 13. In the best scenario, that would put me down at 39 books still to read. However, because I couldn't pick up some of the books because they weren't the first in the series and I hadn't started the series yet, I did have to periodically add books. And the biggest problematic one was the last book I read, The Man Who Died Laughing, which is the 11th book in a series, and so I had to add 10 alone for that one. But overall, I did add 16 books to the shelf. So you're probably already there. I added 16, I read 13, I'm at a deficit of 3. So instead of 52 books, I now have 55 books to read on the shelf. It actually increased by 3. In order to get everything finished on the shelf, I would have to add those additional 3 books. Now, it could be worse, and we'll find out in 2026 because I haven't gone through every other book on the shelf to see how many more books I need to add additionally. So I'm going to start 2026, continue this challenge again, and say my starting point is 55 books for next year and see how low I can get it. So that is going to wrap up my results for the Top Shelf Challenge for 2025. Thank you for coming along on this journey with me. I'm going to choose to look at it as a mild success, and we'll see what we do in 2026. So again, thanks for joining. Tell your pets I said hi, and I'll see you next time.